Happy fall, garden nerds! I'm Christy Wilhelmi from Gardenerd, and today I want to share with you fall gardening tips, and specifically our fall planting guide. Every year at Gardenerd we publish a list of what you can plant when the weather cools down, and here in Southern California and other places across the United States that have a warm winter, here's what to plant. First of all your greens. So that means lettuces and mustard greens and arugula and even herbs that normally bolt to seed really quickly in the hot weather, like cilantro and parsley. Those can be planted in your salad garden and they will last you all through the winter and even into spring. Next, root vegetables, and that includes things like carrots, parsnips, beets, turnips, and radishes. Speaking of root veggies, tubers fall into that category a little bit, in that potatoes grow really well in both fall and spring in warm winter climates. You want to make sure you sprout your potatoes a little bit first, so put those in an open lid, like a cardboard box lid, and put them under a windowsill but not in direct sunlight. Once they get about half-inch bushy sprouts, then you can plant them 6 inches deep and a foot apart. Next on the list is all of your brassicas. That's broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kohlrabi, Brussels sprouts, kale, and turnips, which I put in with the root vegetables, but they're technically a brassica. Those are going to be so much happier in the fall and winter than they are in the spring and summer. Now, where I live, we have a bug called the bagrata bug, and they breed in temperatures over 73 degrees, and in the cooler temperatures, they don't do that. So no bagrata bug, no problems. And also you won't experience aphids as much or at all over winter when you grow these crops. Another great crop to grow in the fall is peas. So you can grow sweet peas, which are just flowers, don't eat the pods because they're poisonous, or you can grow any of the edible peas, sugar snap, snow, or shelling peas. These grow great in the garden over winter, and we just eat them straight out of the garden. They never even make it back into the house. Now for the more adventurous, I highly recommend growing a grain. Winter wheat is something that's really fun to grow. It gets about this tall over, a certain period of time, and then it goes dormant, and then it will jump in spring and produce seed heads. If you've never grown wheat before, it's not very hard to do, and you do need a little bit of space, but it's worth doing for the experience of growing your own. Here at Gardenerd headquarters, we've grown spelt, we've grown kamut, we've grown red fife, Turkish red, and Sonora white wheat, and they've all done really well in the home garden. You can also grow cover crops, and wheat is considered a cover crop if you're doing a winter wheat because it goes dormant partway through the season. It's covering the soil so you don't have to deal with it and you don't have to deal with weeds. Cover crops are great for fixing nitrogen in the soil too. If you get a seed mix of something like hairy vetch and bell beans and fava beans and peas, and then some oats in there too. Places like Peaceful Valley Farm and Garden Supply and lots of other seed catalogs offer seed mixes for cover crops that you can grow over winter. And they're nitrogen fixing, which means they pull atmospheric nitrogen out of the sky and fix it in their roots. So then when spring comes along, usually around February-ish our time, you cut them down after about a third of the flowers have opened and chop up the biomass, lay it down on top of the bed, cover it with a layer of compost, about an inch or so, and water it well. And in about 3 weeks after that, you'll be ready to plant your spring crops. Oh, and let's talk about alliums, onions, garlic, and shallots. Fall is the best time to put those in the ground. Garlic and shallots, you take the bulbs, break them into cloves, and push them into the soil. Onions require a little bit more involvement, so you can either buy transplants for those or start seeds indoors and transplant them out later. Either way, onions are great protection against bugs in the garden, except keep them away from your peas and beans. They don't like each other. They don't get along. So keep them apart. Everybody will be happy. Oh, and I forgot to mention Swiss chard. We're lucky enough here in Southern California to be able to grow Swiss chard in either spring or fall. They do great in both seasons. Cool weather is the key. Then they stay free of aphids and they look really beautiful in the garden. So plant some chard along with your other greens. But before you do any planting, we need to talk about bed prep, because you can't just take out your old crops and put in new crops. You need to amend the soil, especially after summer season, where most of the crops you're growing are heavy feeders and they produce a fruit, so they're pulling a lot of nutrients out of the soil. So it's a really good idea to put some back. So what I do is pull all the old crops, put down about 1 inch of compost, work in some worm castings, and I just scratch it in with my fingers into the top couple of inches of soil. I don't dig all the way in because I'm using no-till practices, and unless I need to dig out roots that are coming from trees nearby that are infiltrating the beds, no-till is the way to go. If you do use organic vegetable fertilizer, then now's the time to apply that before you're ready to plant. Water it all in, and some people wait a week before planting. I find with no-till you can stick stuff right in the ground right away. Other things to think about. In October, it's the perfect time to order your bare root fruit trees. Online, there are a lot more options available than at your local nursery, but just check with your local nursery just to be sure. When you order online in October, they usually show up around December or January. If you dig the hole now and get it ready for the tree, when it shows up, you'll be able to plant it right away. Also, this is the time to put in perennials of all kinds, whether it's shrubs or fruit trees or native plants or perennial vegetables. Now's the time to put them in, because once you plant them, they will develop strong roots over winter and then jump in spring. Now, if you live in an area that has the threat of frost or gets frost, make sure you have protection. Floating row cover or insulated garden fabric is really important to have on hand to protect your crops from frost. Put that over everything once it's planted, pin it down all the way around. You can still get sunlight and water through it, so it's not an issue. It doesn't interfere with everything, and it actually protects your brassica crops from having cabbage moths lay their eggs on the undersides of the leaves, which those critters will tear the crap out of everything. So floating row cover is great protection whether you have a frost or not. So that's it. That's our fall planting guide. If you like this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you can find out when our next video is coming online. And consider becoming a Patreon subscriber to support all the free things that we do at Gardenerd. Visit gardenerd.com for all kinds of growing information, including how to grow all of these fall crops. Happy fall gardening!